What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Jerichoholic8704, here to talk to you today about image in wrestling. Wrestling today in 2018 is very centered around work rate. It's a lot about, what can you do in the ring? What can't you do in the ring? Can you deliver in big match situations? Can you have a good match with just about anyone? And that's mainly what people look for nowadays. And I'm not saying that that's a bad direction for this business to go. And I'm not saying, fans shouldn't look at that, because trust me, I look at that probably more than anything. But what I want to stress is we really can't discount the importance of the look. And when I say look, I think I want to kind of broaden that term a little bit, because I don't just mean someone's physical appearance. Because in the year 2018, we've seen pretty much everything there is to see in wrestling. We've seen the shortest men, we've seen the tallest men, we've seen the skinniest guys, we've seen the most muscular guys. That really no longer matters. I mean, like, take for a great example, take someone like Braun Strowman. When Braun Strowman debuted, he really didn't look a whole lot different than he does now. Like, the only difference is he ties his hair back in a ponytail, which I will say was an improvement from just having his kind of like ratty hair just kind of, down and just kind of by the wayside. It didn't really look all that good. So when he tightened it up with the ponytail, that does look a little better. But my point is, Braun Strowman wore relatively the same attire. He has the same, look. He has the same build. It's not like he did any drastic changes to his physical appearance. But what got him over was not the fact that it was this giant dude who was, 7 foot tall and, this muscular guy. It's he used that image to his advantage, and he created a character around that got over, because his presence was so powerful. He was so charismatic. He was so, he was able to kind of morph into this very destructive, just kind of wrecking ball kind of character, that it kind of coincided with his size. So it's not that, his size and his height and his muscular appearance got him over. It's he used it to his advantage to kind of create, a character. So I guess in a sense, this is more about personality and charisma. And I mean, I know that seems just like an obvious statement, like, duh. I mean, charisma has always mattered in wrestling. That's always been like a defining factor in who makes it to the top and who doesn't. But I mean, I think it just bears repeating, because, you could have the greatest physique, you could have all the talent in the world, but if you can't form a complete sentence without boring a crowd, you're not going to be in the main event. Like, no hate against him, but like, look at someone like Tyson Kidd. He really started to find a little bit of a nice character for himself in the latter portions of his career, when he was in that tag team with Cesaro, and just unfortunately he had that injury, that match with Samoa Joe. But I mean, like, Tyson Kidd had like a nice look. He looked like he was a good looking guy. He had, he was muscular. He was in shape. He had like, just good overall presence. He didn't look weird. He just looked like, a nice, ordinary professional wrestler. He had kind of like funny little gear with like the cat gear and everything. He kind of added a little bit of personality to himself, adding those like beats to his entrance and stuff like that. And he was a good wrestler too. He was definitely a good, solid in-ring worker, but he just didn't have a personality. And I mean, sure, that's fine if you want to be a tag team champion and intercontinental champion. You could probably make it to the top on, ring skills alone, and, not looking like, completely like a goofball out there, looking just like an average Joe. But, if you don't have that defining presence or that charisma, you really can't go to the top. I mean, just like, the person I always think of most is like Hiroshi Tanahashi. When I was starting to get into New Japan, religiously, the first big event I watched was Wrestle Kingdom 9. And I just remember, after all the great matches and everything, I just remember watching Hiroshi Tanahashi come out and just going like, whoa, you know what I mean? Just like, he was so charismatic. His theme song was incredible. His entrance was so great. And he had that look. And it was his hair, and it was his, personality, the way he was walking in the ring. He did the skip and everything. Like, that is your first impression of a wrestler. Wrestling matches don't start right at a bell with two guys in the ring. They start with entrances, and there's a reason for that. It's to establish their characters. It's to establish their personalities as they enter the ring, because this isn't a 100% athletic competition. There's a difference between, like an authentic sport, like football or baseball or basketball. Like, sure, there's kind of a little bit of a entrance for the camera, because, at the end of the day, things like football and baseball and basketball, they are kind of, performances, in the sense that it's high drama, it's TV, they're going to build up a little bit of suspension and everything like that. But, you don't get like these, epic entrances complete with fireworks and music from each individual player. Like, everyone kind of runs out as a team. Sure. Like, I'm kind of speaking football now. Like, you'll have people come out as a team and everything like that. And you might have some certain characters on a team. But in terms of wrestling, the entrance is pivotal in the entire presentation of the show. I mean, like, if you, started a football game right at the kickoff and you skipped all the big theatrics of like, oh, and, from, here's your New England Patriots, I'm just using them as an example. Point is, I feel like in a sporting event, like football, you could start right at the kickoff and not too many people would have missed anything because at the end of the day, it's just an athletic competition. The characters and the players, sure, they might have their personalities off the field, but they don't really matter. But personalities matter in wrestling in everything, you know what I mean? And I think it's just people get so wrapped up in, how great of a match is this going to be, that people kind of overlook one of the more important factors of wrestling, and that's the entrance, the look, the presence. And I mean, I remember vividly, if you don't have a good look, that can easily take someone out of you, no matter how great of a worker or charismatic you are. I mean, it's three different things that all go together in a well-oiled machine. And if you don't have any of these factors, if one's missing, it can greatly hinder you unless you have just the support of the people. You know what I mean? And very, very rarely will that happen because WWE might hold someone down like a Daniel Bryan, who they really don't see as, championship main event material. But Daniel Bryan did have an interesting look. He grew his hair out and grew that beard. I mean, damn it. Like in 2010, Daniel Bryan looked like the biggest Joe ever. He just had that short, Caesar haircut, clean shaven, blank trunks, and again, in Ring of Honor, he was the American Dragon. He had kind of a personality there. But when he was in WWE, when he first came in, he was just Mrs. Lackey. And there was really nothing special about Daniel Bryan except for the fact that he had that large following and people knew what he was about. But eventually Daniel Bryan, he grew his hair out, he got the beard, he is a very good promo, actually. A lot of people, especially in the earlier 2010s, when Daniel Bryan was kind of on the rise, people kind of overlooked how great of a promo he was. But, he's very charismatic and everything, and he's a great wrestler. So he had all three of the things checked off in terms of, how to get accepted by the fans. And before I continue any further, I'm not saying that look, charisma and / image / presence and in-ring ability are the only defining factors of what makes a wrestler successful. I'm not saying that. I'm saying at face value, if you want to make a first impression on the fans, these are the three things you need. And more importantly, in the first of first impressions is your ring entrance. And that's where you can establish your personality and your presence. And for me personally, when I was heading into New Japan, not really knowing a lot of the wrestlers there, Hiroshi Tanahashi could have been, he's often compared to John Cena because, he's such a big baby face, like the John Cena of New Japan. He could have been John Cena in the sense that John Cena isn't really the greatest worker, at least, in, the earlier portions of John Cena's career where he really wasn't all that great, you know what I mean? Hiroshi Tanahashi could have been a pretty shitty in-ring worker for all I knew, but when I saw him make his entrance, I said, that's my guy. I love him because he's just everything I want in a wrestler. He was just such a great baby face. He had this fun aura around him. And lo and behold, I discovered when I watched his match with Okada at Wrestle Kingdom 9, he's a fucking terrific wrestler. But I didn't know that right away because your in-ring work is not the first thing people are going to see, regardless of if it's the millionth time watching the show or the first time watching this show. The first thing, unless they happen to just enter in right as the bell rang, which is just highly unlikely. You know what I mean? And even then, you still have your personality in the ring. In a wrestling match, it's not all business. You know what I mean? There's still flashes of a character in there. So mainly just what I'm saying, but I kind of got sidetracked. I wanted to mention the Cruiserweight Classic because the Cruiserweight Classic was when a lot of people were introduced to Zack Sabre Jr. for the first time. And, when he took off his jacket and, he exposed his pretty much just super, very lean, skinny physique, a lot of people just threw him under the rug. And ironically, I would say in having such a radically different look from all the wrestlers, and people would say a poor look, I would argue that Zack Sabre Jr. has one of the most unique looks in all of the wrestling business because he is so radically different. He's so, and again, he's not I would say my physique out there in wrestling. I'm super skinny. That would look horrible. You know what I mean? Zack Sabre Jr. at least has some tone to his body. But, Zack Sabre Jr. used that image kind of like how Braun Strowman, I mean, this is probably the only time you're ever going to see Braun Strowman and Zack Sabre Jr. compared to in the same sentence. But Zack Sabre Jr. used that look to his advantage and he created a character around it. You know what I mean? And it's not like Zack Sabre Jr. goes in there and gorilla presses, these super heavyweights. He's a technical guy. It makes sense that, when you look at Zack Sabre Jr.'s in-ring work and you watch how his match flows, it corresponds to his body type. It's similar to Braun Strowman. I mean, would you want to see Braun Strowman go in there and just do some arm ringers and some arm bars and some knee bars and a figure four? Like, no, that's not what Braun Strowman's about. You know what I mean? So I think, again, having that image is everything, not only for your first impression, but for the cohesion of your whole character, because in-ring work, again, is not the only thing that matters. Sure, it's probably the highest priority for a lot of fans right now because this is the work rate era, but it's just very, very important that you keep that image alive. So I talked about this way more than I thought I would, but that's it for me. My name is Jerichoholic8704, and I will see all of you guys later.